We're going to move now into a segment about searching. This does not cover everything, but it covers a lot. And the reason we're going to talk about that is because a main part of your job is going to be using the existing catalog to find records that you can attach to for those items that you have. And so search is going to become one of those integral skills that oftentimes maybe we assign to reference staff or even circulation staff, but it is an integral part to this job, copy cataloging. As you are searching, there are some tips to frame in your mindset. The first, let me go back again. As you think about how to begin a search, it's good to start with the basics. You don't need to know everything about an item or a topic to search successfully. Start broadly while still choosing your words carefully and checking for correct spelling. Correct spelling is an important thing in evergreen search. You're probably familiar with Google search that will often try to correct what it perceives as a misspelled word in a search based on whatever closely resembles what you typed and is more popular. Evergreen search doesn't have the same functionality at this time. And so correct spelling can be important. I encourage you, I use this on the daily basis, to use Google search to correct your spelling. Especially with some names and even some questions about authors. Maybe you don't have an item in hand, but you're looking for some things for an author. Once you've done your initial broad search, you can narrow the results using a variety of facets and filters, which we will be looking at. For specific searches, using authorized headings or authorities as an access point is a good strategy. So we start with the basics. We're going to choose our words and check our spelling carefully. We're going to talk about using facets and filters to narrow that search. And then when it's necessary, and as you get more experience, using authorities for accurate searches is going to make that even easier. There are several ways to access the search menu or the catalog search. We've looked at a couple of them already. You can search for items by barcode to access an individual record via the item status screen, or you can search the catalog. If you have a barcode for a specific item, I'm going to go back here real quickly. You can enter it into the barcode field in the item status screen, and it will show information in the grid, which we already talked about, related to that item. If you click on the hyperlinked title of the item, it will take you to its catalog record page. If you don't have a specific barcode or would just like to do a different type of search, you'll select Search the Catalog. This will open the default advanced search screen unless you have set up a different default search screen, whether it is the Mark Expert or the Numeric Search. You can also search from the Evergreen Indiana client homepage. There's a field above the item search and cataloging category that allows you to perform a basic keyword search. Selecting advanced search will open the full catalog interface with the options to do a number of search types and apply filters. Again, it's going to open up the advanced search unless, and just the default screen there, unless you have your default set to another. And then, like in the search and cataloging menus, you can access the item status screen from this list as well. The item status screen you're of course going to have a thing in hand or that list of barcodes that, or that one barcode that you have saved that you copy paste into the field, and then you can click on the barcode, or yes, the barcode, and it will take you to the holdings editor that we're going to look at as we move forward. So we have the basic keyword search here, we have the advanced search, and then of course, so one of the things, of course, the item status screen. One of the things I did want to give you a bit of a preview of, and this is something that you will have access to when we upgrade to the next version of Evergreen. It is the staff catalog. What you have in the client right now is, it essentially shows you the opaque view, exactly what the patrons see, and then the functionality for adding holdings and things has been integrated with all of that. There is in development and has been developed a new client catalog. And so from there, you will still have the options to do a keyword search, a numeric search. It is now going to be called a mark search for staff as opposed to an expert search. There is definitely some values attached to the word expert. It has a connotation as opposed to just stating what it is, and so they've changed that. And then there's also the browse and shelf browse. When we talk about the new features in a couple months, there'll be a webinar on September the 2nd, I believe, for the new features in the upgraded version. We'll get more into what this experimental catalog looks like. Now, it says experimental on this screen. It is not experimental. This was taken from an earlier version. We will be using a staff catalog. So it's going to look fairly different in the next couple months. Within the advanced search, we're going to talk about the way to use the different types and filters and things. But before we go any further, are there any questions about accessing the catalog? Okay. As we get into search, we're going to spend the majority of time in this advanced search. Advanced search is this first screen, but then it also is the way that we access these other specific types of search, the numeric search and the mark or expert search. You have the option to choose what type of input are you putting in there. Is it the title? Is it the author? There are some options. We're going to be talking about tags eventually, and how to search digital book plates. It's important to note in this screen that while there is this default for the input type, they all have a drop down next to them. And so you could have title with all of them or author with all of them. And you can also add or subtract the number of those fields there. So you can see right below the operators, which we'll talk about. There's also an add search row, and then there is to the right of that free text field for the type, there's an X that just removes that field. So we have our type, and then we have our operators, and the two operators that we have are and, which would be kind of a plus, or. And so if we're doing an and, that's going to narrow our results because it means that we have to have both of those criteria in the search results. And if we have or, that means it's going to expand the results because we either need to have the one thing or the next, and you can have as many configured however you want, keeping in mind the tips to try to keep that search as basic as possible and still get the results that are appropriate. So we have the operators, and then we have below the search button and the clear form button, we have the filters. When we are looking for very specific things, these can be a really great way to narrow a search that maybe come back with a lot of results. But at the same time, there's finding the balance between if I use too many filters, then I'm going to come back eventually with 0 results. Or I may be filtering out the appropriate results if somehow I got those filters off. We'll see an example of that in a moment. So in this case, I have done a search for the 13th tale by Diane Setterfeld, and I have come up with a list of results because I did not define any formats. I did not choose a specific library. Instead, I searched the entire consortium. You can see from these results that I am showing 10 results out of 12. So I have multiple pages here, and there are a variety, even just on this page, of formats. You see I have 2 different records for large print, and then a CD book for that as well. And we're going to get into using the different tools on this results page, but we're going to go back to look at the numeric search. In this case, you can see from the drop-down we have several options depending on what we are, what type of item we are looking for, as well as some of these may have multiple ones of these things. So there's ISBN, which is a fairly standard thing for modern books. If we go down that list, you can see that we also have the Library of Congress control number, the LCCN. That is on a lot of modern books as well, and I believe that that was instituted in the early 70s. ISBN was a little bit earlier than that, but not for everything. So that was sometime in the 60s. UPC, of course, is your Universal Product Code, and so that is another thing. If it is available on the item, it may be in the record. It's only been in the past, I'm going to say 5 years, but I think that that's a pretty fuzzy 5 years, that UPC has been considered a standard identifier in MARC, or at least in Evergreen. I'm not entirely sure on that. I know it hasn't always been. The ISSN is going to be something that is utilized for serials, whether they're magazines, journals, and some other serial type publications. And then some other options in here, there's the title control number. That refers to a specific bibliographic record. And then there's the item barcode, which refers to a specific item. I have never used this screen for an item barcode search because I know that there are other places to go. Neither have I ever used this for a TCN because there are other places to go for me that make more sense. They may work for you. In this case, I've selected ISBN. I've entered in that number, and now I see that that refers specifically to The Shadowland by Elizabeth Kostova and brings me to this result. You can see there that there are multiple items, 10 copies of that, but this is the record that has that ISBN reflected in it. I am happy to see that only one record showed up here. There may be, if you were to do an ISBN search, where you end up with multiple results, and that generally means that there needs to be some record merging. There's a lot less of this in the catalog now because of all of the work of our catalogers, as well as some regular duplication processes. So, but if you do see, after doing a ISBN search or even a UPC search, multiple records that come up, then more investigation is generally appropriate for that. And then we also have the option for the expert search, or as it is being transitioned to be called, the MARC search. And this refers back to searching those specific tags. So we have the fields where we have the 100 or the 245 or the 500 or the 300. And then within that, we can also search subfields, whether it's an A or a C or a V or whatever. And then there's a free text value field here. So, and you can also narrow your libraries. In this case, we want to search in the tag 100 for the value of Setterfield. I did not put in a subfield here. You could if you knew that that's what you're doing, but you didn't. And I'm going to continue searching for items throughout the entire consortium. In this case, you can see now that I have multiple results. This is not a specific item, nor is it a specific format. So we have the 13th tale, we have Diane Setterfeld as the author. So we know that Setterfeld showed up in that 100 field. If I were to scroll down, it's possible that if there is another authorized heading, author heading, that is not Diane, that it could be down there, but this is also sorted by relevance. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. So we've looked at those searches within the basic search, a keyword search where you just put text in the field you search, and then different varieties of the expert search where we have your the advanced search with your default screen, but then also the numeric and the MARC search. There are two specialist searches that you can also utilize, and both of these will bring you to specific bibliographic records. They are the search for item by TCN and search for item or retrieve item by database ID. In this first picture you see here, what's called the record summary, and you can see that database ID is highlighted. That number that is there, that database ID, refers to a distinct, unique record within the Evergreen database. I also have circled here the little toggle that's up in the upper right-hand corner that will allow you to expand or collapse that record summary. And this is just useful as far as the real estate on your screen goes. So you can see that when I click on it to expand it, there's significantly more information there, not just the title and author and publication date, but then I also have the call number, the bib call number, if there is one, there may not be one, the TCN, which is the title control number, the database ID that was already displayed, and then some more information about who the record was created by, edited by, and last edited on. So you can also see in that second expanded view of the record summary that the TCN number is there. TCN has become a bit of it's become a little bit problematic. It used to be very reliable as being a unique identifier for records. Some of them come in, either this one you can see came in from CIRC, some from OCLC, some are auto-generated by Evergreen when a record is created in Evergreen. But because of the number of things that we're bringing in from sources that may be a source where we also bring other things in, we've come across some collisions and some problems with TCN. And so I generally recommend that people opt towards the database ID, because that is always going to be a unique identifier for that bibliographic record. In advanced cataloging, there are some more nuanced things that need to be addressed, which we'll talk about those in advanced cataloging. So you can search based on these numbers though, and you access those searches through the cataloging menu, the first one being retrieve bib by record ID, and you'll just copy paste that number into this field and click submit. You do the same thing with the retrieve bib record by TCN or title control number. Copy paste that into the field and click submit.